Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 through 32 reads like this. And he arose that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of Jabbok. He took them, sent them over the brook, and sent over what he had. Then Jacob was left alone, and the man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. Now when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with me and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked, saying, "Tell me your name, I pray." And he said, "Why is it that you ask about my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Just as he crossed over Peniel, the sun rose on him, and he limped on his hip. Therefore, to this day, the children of Israel do not eat the muscle that shrank, which is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, and the muscle shrank. May God bless the reading and hearing of his word. You may be seated. First, let me just say, I'm glad to be here this morning because it's God's grace. I know you hear a lot of folks say that, but the more and more I settle down, the more I realize that it is because of God's grace that I'm here. I was sharing with BJ the other night, even as long as I continue to grow and be a part of preacher ministry, the more and more I realize I still ain't worthy in and of myself. Because when I just get to myself and think about where I am, where I've come from, all the stuff I did, and even my own fleshly nature, I need to be up under the church, let alone preaching in front of the church. So I ain't tripping when I say I understand it's God's grace. And I'm a grace preacher. I'm seeing God's grace in everything. I got grace to live. I'm saved by grace through faith. God give me the grace to preach. I ain't been to seminary, none of that. It's only by God's grace that I can stand up here. And then when it's time for me to transition, I can even die by grace. Yeah. So I don't take it lightly. And I really appreciate being able to do this at Rose Terrace, because I don't know about y'all, but there ain't too many churches that I know of. I don't know about every church all over this land, but there ain't too many churches that will give you the privilege to practice your gift and your talent. I don't think a lot of us get there because we just come and we sit and we look and watch. But when you realize God has given you something, it's a great thing when you got a church family where you can come and practice and mess up and straighten it out. Yeah. So I thank y'all for letting me practice and mess up and straighten it out. So, but I just wanted to say that this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I don't take it lightly. But I got 3 things I want to say to you today that I believe really can help us, that's helping me. Just as an introduction, let me just kind of back up to where I left off last time. The last time I talked with you guys, I spoke to you about living a radical life. And I tried to help us to understand that there's some important things when it comes to being radical or living a radical life. Number one, I tried to help us to understand that many of us are caught up in this growing phenomena of everything being excessive, being radical, almost in every facet of life, especially here in America. Just look around. Everywhere you go, it got to be big. It got to be crunk. It got to be turned up. Pastor said tuned up last week, but everything got to be turned up. Got to be off the chain. You know, you got to be the big boss hog, you know, just for the sake of being different. And in our minds, we think we're somehow being radical. But just because you somehow are extremely different, or you think you're turned up or you're off the chain, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're radical. That's right. And I want to try to help us understand again today, a lot of this stuff that we tend to think is being radical, y'all understand this language, you're really just being ratchet. If I could just break it, all ratchet means that you're trifling, you living in a wretched fashion. because you're different. And a lot of stuff that we think being radical, just when you just set it side by side, especially as a Christian, all it is ratchetness and wretchedness. So I also tried to explain to us last time that we so messed up as a community, just ratchet stuff. We even boast about it. We proud about being how mean I can be. Now I put some hands on you. They ain't gonna be proud about. And I want to also suggest to you again today, a lot of this stuff that we do in an effort to somehow be radical, it oftentimes suggests just the opposite. Yeah. In other words, you bad, you the boss, you the baller. It really suggests that you this big, you afraid, and you ain't balling. You just put on the facade. It's projection because you don't know who you are. Right. So you're not being radical at all. And I want to suggest to you again today that just being different, just for the sake of being different. I mean, even in our Christianity, I mean, sometimes, and I still marvel, I don't criticize, but I still marvel, even our Christian family, how many folk talk, but I'm a radical for Christ, you know, I mean, I'm ridiculously and fanatically radical for Jesus. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're a radical Christian. You can do a whole lot of stuff for the sake of being different. I mean, you know, whatever your religious flavor is, just because it's different and way out, you know, it don't mean it's radical. Yeah. Some of it's just different, but some of it's just flat out weird and foolishness. Yeah. And then we got nerve to stick Jesus' name on it. And I know, well, you know, God say we're peculiar people, but peculiar don't mean weird and foolish. Did y'all catch that? Yeah. And so the definition of the word radical, as I said to you last time, it essentially means just to get to the root of, to tear out by the root, to, more specifically to tear out the lies by the root, because you want to affect a fundamental change in practice and conditions and institutions. Right. That's what the definition of being radical is. So just to make it plain, is what you're doing, what we're doing, the stuff we think being radical, is it affecting a fundamental change for the better? Is it affecting your practice, your condition, your institution, your house any different? Is your church any different? Is your job any different because you radical? You ain't got to answer that. We ought to know what the answer is. So before I give you my 3 points, I want to just call your attention to a couple of things where we really need some radical changes. More than one, but these are 3 that I thought about as I was preparing, and Pastor's been saying it for the past couple of years. In our lives, there's some serious eradication that needs to take place in particular 3 areas. In theology, in church, in our social economic situation, our government, and in our families. Yeah. And you know, I said, what you saying by that? Well, stop thinking about it. Many of us, we go to church, we get our church on, we go to work and try to save and do all that, and how we relate to our spouses, even how we relate to the opposite gender. I don't need no man, I don't need no woman, and all that. And we never stop to think, well, where did those thoughts come from? From a Christian perspective, all those are lies. And lies need to be eradicated. As far as our religion goes, and I won't go too far with it, but it is what it is. For the most part, even in Black America, we don't realize, we have a hard time accepting that a lot of what we do has been whitewashed. Yeah. Just saying, that's what it is. A lot of the stuff we do because it's church, it's Sunday, and it's Jesus and all that, a lot of that stuff has been filtered through a white European perspective. It ain't got to do with Jesus. Right. Jesus is who he is. The Bible is what it is. Yeah. But the approach to it, it's been all jacked up. It is what it is. And then, you know, when we look at our government and our social economic system, I was talking with a close acquaintance of mine that I work with. Well, you know, you trying to, you know, y'all trying to make racist. And I said, well, number one, we ain't got no power to be no racist. Because you got to have some power to be a racist. We might be able to act to racism. But, well, you know, you're trying to make your children hate white folk. No, that's not it. What I'm trying to do with my children and with myself is just help us to be conscious that, by and large, this system is based on a white supremacist construct. And in other words, you work hard all you want to get you a degree. That's great. But by and large, this thing ain't designed for you. So it needs to be eradicated. That's why I appreciate this pastor in this church, and other men do what they want to do. But if you're gonna live an effective life and from a Christocentric point of view, you need to know what the deal is. And then take it even a step further. I mean, in our families, and it goes back to my point about boasting and bragging and being proud to be radical when we really are just being ratchet. Think about maybe not none of you in particular, but how we boast about how we ain't got no love for our brother. That ain't cool. That ain't lying. That ain't even in the Christian household of faith, that ain't none of your business. I mean, I got Jesus, you get your Jesus too. But now this is about community life. And we boast in that. I mean, I don't know about Pastor Charles, y'all in somebody's business, I mean, I got Jesus on my own. That kind of foolishness. We brag about that. We brag about disunity. We brag about the lack of harmony in our community. I mean, look at our households. And I can say this flat-footed, and I ain't trying to make anybody mad, but it is what it is. I mean, look at when it comes to marriage. Oh, it got quiet then. We want the cow and the milk, but don't want to be committed to it. Just saying. And that didn't just happen just arbitrarily. That seed was planted way back then. And I know what I'm talking about because I was there too. 24 years ago, I sat in Pastor Charles' office with my little list in that old building with the roof falling down, telling him why I was going to stay with Teresa for a few years first. We were going to work it out. So I know what I'm talking about. I had it written, told him, I said, yeah, mm-hmm. We're going to get married, but just in a little while. That kind of stuff. And then get mad when the man tells me to my face, well, no, that ain't going to work. So it's okay if you don't like it. I feel you. I feel you for real, but I don't understand that anymore. Y'all know what I'm saying? See, that kind of stuff like that got to be eradicated. And when pastors stand in this pulpit and other folk run up on you and whatnot, they're not trying to be mean. They're just trying to eradicate some lives out of your life. When pastor asked me 24 years ago, well, boy, don't you love a woman? Yeah. Well, you say you're going to get married? Yes, sir. Well, what you waiting on? I kind of got to see how, what you got to see. I know you done already saw it. How much more do you need to see? Y'all get the picture. And then we come to church and we wave our hands and the Lord is blessing all this kind of stuff, but we still living ratchet like that. Maybe you ain't killing nobody, maybe you ain't, thieving and whatnot, but we carry on like that. And all that is just ratchetivity. I made that word up, y'all. So all I'm saying to you, if we're really going to make a difference, if you really want to make a difference to affect fundamental change, we got to really begin to live radically. Our lives got to be characterized by truth. It's only truth that eradicates the lie. We need to be radicalized. We've been ratchetized enough, especially as a community. So it's time out for us living a ratchet, wretched, trifling lifestyle. And so in order for us to really begin to live a radical life, radically, if you will, some things got to happen. It just ain't going to happen arbitrarily. And I think that's important too, because that's another one of the lies. We bought into this lie. All we got to do is come to church. We sang a few songs. Maybe the pastor, he'll give us a little hoop at the end of the message. I mean, that's cool, and I like a little hoop from time to time. But stuff like that, in and of itself, it ain't going to cause you to have no change. Think about us. Most of us have been coming to this church for a long time. Singing on the praise team, going to discipleship class. Listen to pastor challenge us. But have your life really had any fundamental change? So I'm saying to you, something else is going to have to happen if your life is going to be radicalized. Now, in between Genesis chapter 30 and to where we are in chapter 32, we find that God had promised to bless Jacob. Yeah. And we see that God did bless Jacob because Jacob had a lot of cows. Yeah. Had a handful of women. He's a wealthy man. But just like us, there's another side to being blessed. The other side of the blessing is this idea and the matter of having a godly character. Yeah. See, we want to overlook that. It's all about money coming. I'm the head, not the tail. The last shall become first. That's all a part of it. But the blessing, I want to suggest to you, has even more implications toward having a godly character. That's radical living. And so if we take a glimpse of Jacob's life, we can see that he spent a lot of his life living not so radical, if you will. As a matter of fact, Jacob lived much of his life consistent with what his name meant. Yes, he did. And if you don't know, Jacob's name literally meant heel grabber, the one who deceives, supplanter. In other words, just like we do, always trying to get over, trying to trip up somebody. Y'all know how we say, I got game, I got major swag. That was Jacob. He spent most of his life carrying on like that. So Jacob's name means that he grabs he's a supplanter. And consequently, he lived a lot of his life like that. And so for me, when I look at the story, not only is it a challenge, it's encouraging at the same time, because as the story also shows us how, as ratchet as we have been, God still can change us to use us in a radical way. Does that make sense? So in this chapter, we're going to focus on the last 4 verses. We find Jacob at this place where he comes to a harsh reality that the way he's been living, the way he's been rolling, the way he's been carrying on, he comes to the place where he realized it hadn't been worth anything at all. All his getting over, all his scheming, all of his, taking the birthright and stealing the blessing from his brother Esau, it comes to really no end. He realized that the only way, however, to live victoriously was simply a life of surrender. And consequently, God changed his name to Israel. And that name means God prevails. He wrestles one who struggles with God. And I like what A.W. Tozer says. He said that the Lord can't fully bless a man until he has first conquered him. Did y'all catch that? I was listening to Pastor Charles talk this morning. We don't, and number one, God can't conquer you unless you're willing to face yourself. A lot of us don't want to face ourselves. But A.W. Tozer suggests that, God can't bless you until he conquers you. And oftentimes, maybe even most of the time, God, just like with Jacob, God can't conquer us until he breaks us. So number one, I want to suggest to you that if you really, the idea is that number one, you want to live a radical life. And I say that because some of us really don't. Maybe some of us haven't thought about it. Some of us are just satisfied going to church. I don't know. That's where I was. It was cool if I came to Sunday school. Pastor prayed over, and that's all I wanted. Don't tell me I need to marry Teresa. Don't tell me I need to give my tithes to this church. I'm good. I go to prayer meeting. Just leave me alone with that. Darryl, I make it here on Tuesday nights. I'm good. So maybe some of us are satisfied with these little things. But if you want to live a radical life so that you can have a major change in your life and affect your surroundings, 3 things got to happen. Number one, separation. Separation. If you notice where these verses suggest that Jacob sent his wives, his livestock, and all that he had across the river. So he was left alone. So there was a couple of reasons that Jacob did that. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to take this one and suggest to us that if you want to live a radical life, you got to have some separation. Not necessarily isolation. It's just you and Jesus by yourself. Not that. But separation in the sense of solitude. You got to have some solitude. And put it in my words, you got to have some time where you got to kill all the noise. Y'all didn't catch that. You got when Teresa and I, some of y'all don't think we argue, but we do. We just don't slam doors and throw stuff anymore. We still have our issues. and one of the last time we had she calls it a tiff. But what I suggested to her, I heard you saying I don't agree with it, I don't like it. But my point is that if both of us are hollering at one another, how are we going to hear it? I'm hollering louder than you, and you trying to make your point, and you holler at me. You can't hear nothing until you kill all the noise. Does that make sense? So I want to suggest to you that if we really want to begin to live a radical life, we got to make sure we set aside some time for some separation. And that is to kill all the noise there's a couple of areas we really, I believe that we really need to start killing the noise. And some of our relationships are so noisy we can't even think straight. Now, I ain't trying to tell you that, you need to go cut mama off or, nothing, but what I'm saying, you do need to separate yourself. Like it or not, your circle of influence, that's what it is. It influences you. And we hang around and we associate with people, family members, groups, organizations that cloud the issue for us so long, and we can't even think straight. I mean, are y'all following me? Even in religion, it's all about TBN. I got my own personal opinions about that, but you got too much stuff going on in your life that clouds the issue for you. Think about some of the things that you hold so fast to. Brothers, the idea that we have about women, about singing. I've got a close friend of mine that I grew up with, and this is what he told me about 3 weeks ago. Man, I'm gonna get married finally, but I'm gonna go to Costa Rica and get me a Costa Rican woman. And I just okay. Cause see all these black women over here, man. He gave me a whole list of how all y'all black women act. So I wasn't offended, but I was a little taken back. I said, well, so you done met and interviewed and dated every black woman in America, huh? Well, now that's what you just told me. But my point is that a lot of that stuff that he used to make that decision, to form that opinion on, was from his circle of influence. Yeah. Them brothers he running with. Them folk he listening to. Yeah. Them videos he watching. Them CDs in his CD player. And so I'm suggesting to us that there are relationships like that, whether you like it or not, you need to separate yourself from. You still love them. Yeah. I mean, even family members. It might be your children. It might be your mama now. It might, mama can't do no wrong. But the way mama teaching you and everything, she's teaching you to go straight to hell. Yeah. Maybe she ain't put it like that, but she's teaching you so much stuff that's so anti-Christ. And then you come to church and you hear the pastor say or the preacher say something about, well, mama wrong. Now you're mad because, blood thicker than water. Go straight to hell with your thick blood. Are y'all understanding this? Number 2, you need to kill the noise even in religion. Just because it's religion doesn't mean it's right. Ain't nothing wrong with Kirk Franklin. I love Fred Hammond. I got a few people that I even like to listen to, but sometimes you need to cut that stuff off. Oh, I just got to get my praise on. When I get home, I just got to cut my praise on. Well, that's fine, but sometimes you need to cut that stuff off. All right? Then, along with religion, you need to really check your influence that you have coming from the world. I love listening to CNN. And the niece, she's like, I like MSNBC. I mean, you ought to be informed. But just stop and think for a minute. Number 1, if you ain't reading, that's a whole other issue. And if you ain't getting the word of God in you, guess what else is left to influence you? Whatever's coming in your ears and coming in your eyes. And we got the audacity to let all that stuff clutter us and put noise in our head. And we might pick up our Bibles just to come to church so Pastor Charles can see it. That's it. So you need to kill the noise of the world. It's all about education. Yeah, I'm for education. My wife just got her master's. But at some point, we got to separate ourselves from that stuff. You can't educate yourself into the kingdom. You can't educate yourself onto a radically righteous lifestyle. Alone, anyway. Are y'all following me? And then you also need to kill the noise with these gadgets we got. Even in church. Y'all think Pastor think y'all flipping through the Bible? You text it. I'm posting on Facebook right now. Boy, Andre over there preaching. Let me see. You need to separate yourself from a lot of these gadgets. Just like today, my daughter don't know it yet, but we taking a little trip when we leave here to get away. This is a little 3-day vacation, and we ain't taking no gadgets. Taking cell phone for emergencies, but tablets and all that. Because all that stuff clutters everything. That makes sense? I asked another one of my partners, what would you do without Facebook? Why you say that? Well, the point is, see how much time you spend on Facebook? I'm not saying Facebook is all bad, because it's not. There are a lot of benefits. You can advertise, you can reach out and touch folk and all of that. But I'm saying to you that if we are so preoccupied with noise, how in the world are you going to hear what God is saying to you? You can't. If I had everybody to scream and chatter right now, y'all couldn't hear what I'm saying. So you need to separate yourself from it's good. Entertainment has its place. You need to entertain yourself. But you ought not be preoccupied with entertainment. Everybody want to feel good. You know, I just got to get loose. You know, man, I worked hard all week. If I got, you know, that's fine. But dog, when you going to come back? You need to separate yourself. Even pleasure. Everybody want to feel good. And we use, you know, bad situations, you know, problems in life to justify us trying to stay at a place of feeling good. Life ain't always about feeling good. Matter of fact, if you're going to live a radical, righteous Christian life, it's going to be sacrifice. It's going to be some pain. So you got to separate yourself. And why is that important? I said all that to say, what separating yourself does, if you do it right in the sense of having some solitude, it'll lead you to recognize your fears. Y'all catch that? Yeah. Because you got them. You know, you have most of us brothers, I ain't scared of nothing. He bleeds just like I do. Yeah. That kind of, but you got fears. Some of them are legitimate. Some of them are just fears because you don't know. Right. That's why it's important for you to get to yourself so God can speak to you and show you what you got fears of. Yeah. Fears of failing. Yeah. That was my biggest one. I ain't scared of nobody, you know what I mean? I ain't no big bad dude, I ain't never looking for no fight, but in my mind, I'm telling myself I ain't scared of nobody, but way down off in here, I was scared of failing, but probably more so scared to succeed. And you won't figure that stuff out with all this noise going on. Go ahead and listen to your motivational speakers and the Les Brown, that's great, but at some point you need to separate yourself so God can speak to you. Separation or solitude will also help you to deal with your fear of finding out that you ain't got no power. See, that's big. And we mentioned it, a lot of us think that we're so powerful. We don't necessarily say that, but because, and I'm just using her as an example, but because I got a master's and she got a doctor's, or, you know, I've been preaching for 40 years, I'm somehow, you know, invincible compared to y'all. No, you ain't. No, you ain't. When you get to yourself and really listen to yourself, in light of what God is saying to you about yourself, you realize you ain't got nothing in and of yourself. My mama helped me to come to grips with it. I knew it up here, but y'all remember Sister Line, she came over there and sit in that corner, and my prayer was that God would heal her. And in so many ways, he did. But in my mind, I wanted her to be up walking again and all that. And I'm praying. I was praying legitimate, you know, noble prayers. But mama gone. Yeah. And if I'm basing my life on her and all of that kind of stuff, then now what I'm going to do? And so God had to say, well, boy, see, that's the value of getting in solitude with me, that I can show you that, number one, you ain't got no power. All the power, everything that you need to live this life, to sustain you, it's all about me. And I'm saying to you that separation and solitude will help you and lead you toward that reality. Because you got to remember that the reason Jacob, he ultimately ended up alone was because way deep down he was afraid of his brother Esau. Yeah. Y'all remember that, right? If you go back and read the rest of it, one of his folk that he sent across the river said, well, you know, your brother got about 400 men, he got an army over there. Now, the Bible didn't necessarily say that Esau was mounting up an all-out attack, kind of implied. But Jacob rather, was scared. Because he know what he did back in the day. God, I done lied to him, I done stole the blessing, you know, that took his birthright. He probably gonna get me. And so, and as a consequence of him being alone, he was able to deal with that. You follow me? Okay, number two. If you really want to live a radical life, not only do you got to experience some separation, you got to have some confrontation. And that's the bulk of this message here, some confrontation. And I was, as I was preparing this, one commentator suggested that confrontation you can use it interchangeably with the word contradiction. And a contradiction, by definition, is just a hostile or argumentative kind of meeting. Sometimes it go to blows, sometimes it get loud and whatnot, but all the time it's an argumentative kind of meeting. So I'm saying to you that you got to have that kind of confrontation about your own contradictions. Did y'all catch that? Contradiction also suggests that there are some elements and ideas in a situation or a thing that are opposed to one another. Contradiction. So I'm suggesting to you that everybody in here, even those that's been saved alone, you got contradiction still in you. And in order to deal with that contradiction, in order to eradicate that contradiction, you got to have a confrontation with yourself and with God. Does that make sense? And so here we find Jacob in his confrontation. And like Jacob, I want to suggest to us, see, Jacob's biggest contradiction wasn't Esau, as perhaps he might have thought. Because I just said that, the story suggested he was afraid. God, I done did all this wrong. My brother, he probably finna get me. And so almost, I don't know, So that was his mindset. But I want to suggest to you that his biggest contradiction wasn't his brother. His brother wasn't the biggest thing that he had to come against, or that was coming against him. It was his own self. It was his own self in light of God. Watch him now. Just like Jacob, your biggest contradiction, my biggest contradiction today is not the world. It ain't the world's fault. It ain't my wife's fault that I'm unhappy. It ain't Pastor Charles' fault that, I just can't do what I want to do. Y'all follow with me? It ain't the white man's fault that I can't come. Well, yeah, he got implications, but it ain't his fault that you unhappy. That's your contradiction. He got his own issue. It wasn't mama's fault because I couldn't sleep at night, Connie. Y'all with me this morning? So your biggest contradiction, like what Jacob I'm suggesting to you, is really yourself and within yourself. Yes, sir. In light of God. You got to remember, as a Christian, God has a standard for you. And everything within yourself goes against that standard. That's the contradiction. So your biggest contradiction is within yourself in light of God. What's within yourself, even as a Christian today? Well, Pastor told us Tuesday night, and the list wasn't exhaustive. Malice, hate, fornication. All that stuff that we like. Your fleshly desires, your carnal mind, your jacked up belief systems. And I would always hear Pastor tell, since I've been in ministry a while, I don't get surprised anymore, but it always kind of takes me back when I talk with Christian brothers and sisters and some of the stuff that we conflicted about. Now, why you gonna? It's one thing if you're just gonna do it. That's fine. But why we gotta have an argument and a debate about drinking, getting drunk, going to the boat, or in my case, why I gotta be all messed up 24 years ago when I don't with pastor, but I had some ladies that charged me. Well, you married a woman. Why I gotta be all bent up out of shape about that? It is what it is. The conflict is in here. Y'all following me this morning? So your biggest contradiction that you got to confront if you want to live a radical life is yourself and within yourself. It's all that, my word I made up, it's all that ratchetivity that's still in you. Yeah, you still got some triflingness in you. You still like to lie. You still like to protect yourself. You still like to maintain that posture. Can't no man tell me nothing. Brother, y'all won't say it, so I'll say it. That's just what it is. So, unless you face yourself, you'll never be able to recognize your true weakness and your inability as an individual. And that's really all that Jacob was confronted with. You got to remember, he lived his whole life on the come up, on the grind, tricking and supplanting and so forth and so on. And now here he is, all that game he thought he had. Now it ain't working for him. Solitude. Keep on doing what you're doing. And keep on rolling like you're rolling, but at some point you're going to have a stark confrontation that all that you've been doing, all you thought you knew, it ain't going to work for you. And so I'm suggesting to you, if you get in solitude, you can recognize that ahead of time and deal with it. Then your confrontation, watch this now, your confrontation also leads you to recognize the reality that you got some unmet needs beyond yourself. That's another part of our own contradiction. We think we're so bad. I'm so South Dallas. I'm so North Tyler that I got this, that, and the other. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about on Facebook. You so whatever. But when you encounter God and yourself, you see your whatever ain't about nothing. You realize that all that you are, all that your hood is, all that your pastor is, all that you know, you think you know, you still got some needs that you can't meet for yourself. And if I was a bet man, I bet you all that you come to know, I don't care how fit you are, can you meet the need in keeping yourself alive? No, everybody gonna have a funeral. Y'all hear what I'm saying? And so I'm saying to you, when you embrace yourself and allow yourself to have that confrontation about yourself with God, you can realize that there are some unmet needs and there's some inability you have, especially all by yourself. Think about how big the world is. Think about how big your problems are. And here you are all alone about that big. You can't fix nothing, especially by yourself. And that's what confrontation with yourself will help you to come to realize. Then a confrontation will lead you to recognize that only God can meet those unmet needs. Let me put it this way. We good when everything is okay, whatever okay is for you. But you let my life be cut off. You let mama get sick. You let my children get locked up, something where I ain't got no control. Now what I'm going to do? Oh, Lord. Pastor Charles, put me on the prayer list. See, what solitude will help you realize that even before time, you ain't got no power to fix nothing. It's all in God. And along with that, your confrontation will cause you to recognize that your sense of self-sufficiency is your biggest problem. Most of us here today think that all that we do, all that we come to attain, is I put myself up by my own bootstraps. But when you confront yourself, when you allow yourself to be confronted in light of God, you realize that your self-sufficiency is totally insufficient. As bad as you think you are, as much work you put in, as healthy as you might be, as much game you think you got, when it's all said and done, you still are helpless, alone, and stuck out by yourself. Your self-sufficiency, your self-sufficient contradiction is useless and futile in the light of God's truth. Just like Jacob. The way Jacob rolled, he rolled in a sense of self-sufficiency. That was his name. He was supplanter. He went on, playing games and scheming, coming up. But like Jacob, oftentimes our self-sufficiency causes us to prevail. The verse says that he prevailed against him. It causes us to prevail in the sense that we keep on fighting. Let me try to explain it a little better. Like Jacob, when the Bible says that Jacob prevailed, it's not like he somehow prevailed at beating up God. Now, I don't know if this was a theophany, that the angels, the angelic host, but the man that he fought with was a representative of God. And we know that because the man touched Jacob's hip and his hip broke. So it wasn't an ordinary man. So we can just conclude that it was a host of God. So we can conclude that it wasn't that Jacob prevailed over beating the dude up. That's not what he's talking about. But I'm suggesting to us that he prevailed in the sense that he just kept on fighting. Now here he is, he's fighting just like us. We prevail in that we keep on fighting against God. Y'all missed it. Let me put it this way. In other words, we come to church every Sunday. We might think about Bible. We hear the pastor preach whatnot about what thus says the Lord. But we just keep on sinning. We just keep on lying. We keep on shacking. We keep on hustling. We keep on cheating. We keep on pimping. We keep on drinking. We keep on doping. Am I hitting everybody? We keep on being unfaithful. We keep on being uncommitted. We keep on being unloving. We keep on being conniving. We keep on being deceitful. We keep on being lascivious. We keep on making excuses. We keep on justifying. We keep on embracing lies. So you prevailing against God. Now does that make sense? And that's what not realizing what your contradiction is will cause you to do. Yeah. So self-sufficiency is an affront to God. It's your own arrogance. It's your own selfishness. And at the end of the day, but really what you're saying is, God, I'm God. I'm God. You can't tell me what to do. That's why I'm still fighting. I ain't like I ain't hurt nobody, when I hit the little herb, Okay, that's your business. I ain't hurt nobody when I go here so and so, but that's your business. But you just keep on like Jacob. You're gonna find out that God got to break you off something. So when you face your fear and the reality of your self-sufficiency as an individual, and you realize there's nothing else you can do, that puts you in a position where you really can experience God's sufficiency and God to bless you. And then when you're in that position, this is the third piece, and I'm almost done. Then comes the transformation. I said separation, I said confrontation, and now I'm saying to you a transformation. And it's only encountering / confronting God and yourself alone where God's truth can eradicate all that contradiction in your life. That's it. It's the truth that will eradicate anything that's contradictory. That's universal. When you go to school, when you go down to the mosque, that's universal. But for the Christian, we got to understand there is no other way, no other thing, no other person that will eradicate the lies, our selfish nature, our carnality, of other than God through His Word and through His Holy Spirit. Come to church all you want to. Many of us been doing that. Ain't a doggone thing seems to be changing. You're still mean and hateful, but the Lord working on it, Jesus. You still just like, I got no love for Him, but the Lord working on it. But you can be right up in this church building, but never have an encounter with the living God and show them not let Him confront yourself. And you set yourself up for a real disaster. Are you following me? And so I want to suggest to you, and because that's how most of us roll, God oftentimes has to break us off. Not because He wants to show Himself big and bad, but because He wants us not to self-destruct. Yeah, God does that kind of stuff. God is gracious enough to inflict some pain on us so we won't kill ourselves. God is gracious enough to give us over to their own consequences of our bad decisions so we won't jack up the body. We sit up here praying that God will fix this, fix that, and the other. Well, that's great. But go back and check yourself out first and see if it could be a matter of consequence. I done started drinking at 14. I'm drinking now that I'm 57. Now I got cirrhosis. God healed me. He can. But could it be that God has given me over to my own consequences so that I won't mess up everything else? Oh, I still make it to heaven. Y'all tracking with me? So I'm saying to you, that's part of the transformation process. I know a lot of times, especially in our contemporary neo-Christian circle, we don't like to accept the fact that God uses pain as a part of His purpose. And God helped me to see that when I have to spank my kids. I don't get off on spanking my kids. But one thing happened when I put some heat on that behind. They pay attention. That's what I'm talking about. Now we come to church, y'all listen to me and tolerate Pastor Charles. Oh, amen, Pastor, whatnot. Yeah, I know that I sure should be doing that. I just ain't there yet. The Lord working on me. But you let some hell, some pain come in your life. Now you crying with Pastor said, now you're going to be blowing snot. You got to have a meeting with Pastor Charles. You got to call somebody because now you're hurt now. You want the pain to stop. You want her to act right. You want mama to get out the hospital. But it could be that God is saying, well, no, I'm doing this for you because, see, as long as everything's going okay, as long as your bills are paid, as long as you ain't sick with putting all that crap in your body, you're okay. You ain't okay with coming to church. In terms of, I need to get my six-pack for the game, You okay with all that. But when you start to have some problems, now your eye wide open. When I first came to the church, one of the first things I heard Pastor Charles say, he said, I don't know what's wrong with Negroes. It's almost like Negroes got to be flat on their back before they really would just look up. I kind of laughed it off, but I get it now. That's just like us. Just ask yourself, how many times, not that you need to count, but I'm just saying, how many times can you say, well, how consistent, rather, have you been at doing what thus says the Lord until you got a crisis in your life. And unfortunately, a lot of that readjustment is short-lived, and God got to break us off something else. Y'all hear what I'm saying? So I'm saying to you that in the transformation process, God will often use pain, not because he get off on it, but because he's doing it for our benefit. And so it's not like, he had to touch Jacob's hip to say, I'm bigger and badder than you. It wasn't that. It was for Jacob's benefit. And then it's that pain from the truth that will finally cause you to face who you really are. God already know. So when he asked Jacob in the second part of verse 25, what is your name? It ain't like God somehow forgot. God is omniscient. God knew the boy's name. But I'm suggesting to you that he wanted Jacob to recognize who he was. And I said to you in the beginning what Jacob's name meant. So as I get ready to wrap up, let me ask you this morning, what is your name? You want to be blessed? How have you been living? God already know. Let me help you out. Maybe you've been Dave the Dope Fiend. Maybe you've been Loose Tail Lucy. I'm just saying. Maybe you've been Dirty Diana. Nasty Nancy. Or maybe you've been Hardcore Corey. You just mean mug everybody. Nobody better not run up on you. Or maybe you got No Love Lenny. Or this is probably, maybe you Big Pimpin'. Maybe you Killer, Little Monster. Boss Queen, Boss Hog. Just recognize that's how you've been living your life. You can't come up in God's presence with that kind of attitude. Well, God said, come as you are. That's right. You need to recognize how you've been. God already know. So when he's saying, what's your name, he wants you to come to the place where you realize you ain't been about nothing. Maybe, you come to church, but you ain't been about nothing. I ain't been about nothing in and of myself. And then when you finally come to the place, well, you know what, God, you sure right. Here I am. Now God can really start to bless you and change you. And we know that because after Jacob said that, and he said, now your name shall be Israel. Are you with me? Yes. When you are eradicated of your self-sufficiency from your encounter, from your confrontation with God and yourself, it also drives you to cleave to him. Because we see in the conflict, after Jacob got his hip broke off, man, what's your name? Anybody, you may not admit it, but anybody ever been in a fight and then got their butt whooped real good? You may not run up and, man, what's your name? I'll be your friend. But there's something happens when you realize somebody got more on you. You got a whole other level of respect. You won't run up on them no more, will you? Well, let me put it this way, since we so bad and proud, we ain't gonna admit that. But think about your dad or your parent or your person that you admire the most. When you see them really confront a challenge and they prevail, there's something inside of you, unless you're just that crossed up, that causes you to cling to them. Because you know, if Pastor can handle that, he got my back too. I'm gonna roll with Pastor. I remember one time I saw my dad. It scared me to death. I must have been about 13. I saw my dad, and my dad at the time was like 44, my age. And my cousin just came back from the army and was going to try to talk funny to my grandmother. My daddy's mom. So I saw a whole nother daddy. Daddy said, you still in the car, boy. Now, granted, my dad was 6'3", 240 pounds. My cousin was 6'6", 210 pounds. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Cousin came outside with a 410. Daddy rolled on the ground. And so now, man, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I just hold on to daddy. Y'all see the point? So when God breaks you off something, you ought to recognize, you know what, if God can do this as strong as I think I am, why wouldn't I hold to his unchanging hand? And so when you are eradicated of your self-sufficiency as you encounter God, recognizing that you ain't about nothing ought to drive you to cling to God. Cleaving or holding to God's unchanging hand, holding to God's truth. And this is what sets the stage for God to bless you. God can't bless you as long as you're doing whatever you want to do. Yeah, see, we like to compare and justify. You know, Jeff, I know I'm wrong, but I ain't stabbed nobody. I didn't make her do that. We can sin it. Somehow, like, that's doing God a favor by not, just violating somebody. But you're still violating God's will. But until you come to that place and you recognize what's inside of you, it's then and then alone when God can and will bless you. And then in conclusion, as a consequence, your life will be totally changed. Because we see after Jacob went through that encounter, and he asked the man, "What's your name?" And the host said, "Well, what you asked me that for?" He already knew. I know why you asked. You asked me that because I done broke you off something. That's why you asking me. But that ain't the point. The point is I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to change your name and consequently change your life. So when you have this encounter with God, and you really allow yourself to confront yourself in light of God's truth, your whole life will change. Yeah. You no longer have to do ratchet stuff to try to somehow be radical. As a consequence, your life will change, and you ain't got to say a word. Because why am I saying that? Well, the Bible says from there on out, Jacob walked with a limp. He knew it was his limp. Everybody else knew it too. And that reminded Jacob. That showed everybody else that, Jacob, something happened to that boy. So I'm saying to you, when you really encounter God, and when God really breaks you off, to the point to where you will surrender, your life will change. And then, in conclusion, as a consequence, when your life changes, you then will begin to live radically and to affect a change in your institutions, in your family, in life altogether, to the end that God will get all the praise and all the glory. And God bless you.